Hey, I got two things in my hand today, and they probably look completely unrelated, but they're not. Do you know that we live in an age right now where more people own one of these than own a toothbrush? Isn't that shocking? And we're not just talking about like grade 6 boys, okay? Because we understand that, but there are 3.7 billion cell phones in the world, and 3.5 billion people own toothbrushes. Isn't that crazy? And that's what I want to talk to you about today. We live in a really fascinating age, and this is part of a series called The Struggle is Real. If you're watching online, if you're watching at one of our locations today, we're really glad that you're here. But I got to tell you, last week we kicked off, and my wife Tony and I did the message together, and we talked about the struggle that we've actually had in our relationship in a way that we hope was helpful. Because sometimes you look inside people's lives, even a pastor's life, and say, well, clearly they don't have any issues, and that actually isn't true. And so we're in a month-long series about the reality of relationships. Next week we're going to talk about being single, dating, sex, and then we're going to wrap up the series in 2 weeks talking about parenting and the real honest struggle of parenting today. And so today could feel like a real hard right, or a hard left, where it's like, what does this have to do with anything? But today I want to talk to you about social media. And I want to talk to you about being online, because I really think that the game has changed over the last decade. And there is growing evidence that there is a connection between how we feel and the amount of time that we spend on social media. And I don't think it makes things easier to look at everybody else's marriage on social, online and go, oh, well, clearly they don't have any issues, but clearly I do. And we have talked about technology before here, and consistently throughout, here's what we've said, or what I've said. I've said, I don't think, and I still believe this, that technology in and of itself is good or evil. You hear a lot of people say, Facebook ruined my marriage, or Snapchat ruined my marriage, or Instagram ruined my marriage. No, you know what ruins your marriage? You ruin your marriage. People ruin your marriage. Now, social media can help a little bit, but the reality is, I don't think it is good or evil. I think it reveals and amplifies what's already there. Like, for example, think about paper, something that's been around for thousands of years. Is paper good or is paper evil? Well, you can print a Bible on paper, you can print the most beautiful poetry ever written on paper, or you can turn paper into hate mail, or you can turn paper into porn. I mean, paper in and of itself just basically is a canvas to the human heart. And I would suggest that's exactly what social media is. Now, it reveals what's inside you, but it also has a way of amplifying what's inside you, just like paper does. It reveals and it amplifies what's already there. Now, there's a growing body of research over the last decade that's emerged about the impact that social media and smartphones have on us today. So about a decade ago, about 11 years ago, the smartphone as we know it today was invented, and people are beginning to really study its effects on human beings. And it's interesting, we live in a fascinating time because we are technology's parent, but we're also its child. We're inventing these things, but we don't really know what they're doing to us. So here's a study that I found that really fascinated me. And there's an increasing correlation between anxiety, depression, and sadness, like loneliness, and the amount of time you actually spend on social media. So a recent study said this, that the more time you spend on social media, the sadder you feel. So how many of you would say you're on Instagram? How many of you are on Instagram right now? Bunch of you. And if we got into our kids ministry wings or student ministry, not kids, not in like preschooler, they wouldn't be on Instagram. You put them on Instagram. But if you got into middle school, huge. But 63% of Instagram users report being miserable, which is interesting because Instagram, of all the social media platforms, is my current favorite. I love Instagram. I actually really love Insta Stories. That is my personal favorite. I sort of, do Facebook because it's there, and Twitter sort of, but like Instagram, I love. But 63% of Instagram users report being miserable. And when you drill down on that statistic, of the 63% who report being miserable, they spend an hour or more on Instagram every day. Now, what about the 30% of people, 37% who are not miserable? There are 37% who report being happy. They spent less than half as long. So what does this mean? It means the more time you spend on Instagram, the sadder you feel and the more miserable you feel. Now, that's not just Instagram. They went in this study, which was reported in The Economist, they went into all social media and all the technology we have on the phone. And while it'll be hard to digest this chart, I want to show it to you and I'll walk you through it. There were some really interesting statistics. So these are the percentage of users who are happy with the amount of time they spend on each app. So the happiness, 37%, was the lowest on Instagram, followed by Tinder. So for those of you who are dating, if you're looking for a date, okay, 40% were happy on Tinder. The rest were miserable. 41% were happy on Facebook. Reddit, which really surprised me because Reddit can be so negative. But if you're a 25-year-old male, you're probably on Reddit. 43% were happy. Snapchat, 57%. Then there's some others. But what about these? These bottom four have a vast majority of people say, no, I really like it and it makes me happy when I'm on it. So what is it? Here at 83% of people report being happy. That's messages. In other words, text message or iMessage or WhatsApp. 83% said, I'm basically happy. Next one is the phone. Did you know you can actually use these devices to call people? You can still do that. But if you actually make a phone call, it's fascinating. 84% of people say that actually makes them happy. They're happy when they're on the phone with someone. Mail, 89%. That's email. I would put email down here because it makes me miserable, but we'll come back to that in a minute. 89% are happy when they're on email. And FaceTime, 91%. So FaceTime, if you don't know what it is, it's just a video chatting app. That's what it is. So FaceTime, 91%. So what is it that links text messages, phones, mail, like email, and FaceTime? You know what it is? Actual human-to-human contact. That's what they have in, like, you're not messaging some random person you're scrolling past. It is an actual person that you know or that you've met. You're phoning someone you know. You're FaceTiming probably with people you love, right? Whether that's your kids or relatives or your best friend or a neighbor, something like that. So these are all relational. These are actually connected to real people. These are where you are randomly scrolling through other people's lives, some of whom you know, and some of whom you don't. You're following celebrities, you're following athletes, you're following, whoever you happen to follow on social. And it's fascinating that the more anonymous it becomes and the more you peer into other people's lives, the more miserable you are, and the longer you spend on it, the more miserable you are. But the more it's actual people that you know, even work, like at email, the happier you are. It's interesting. So what's going on? What's going on? Why are you miserable here, but you're happy here? I think we could say the problem is comparison. Like when you're actually on these apps, when you're actually on social media, what you tend to do, what I tend to do, is we look at everyone else's life and we see how together they have it, and then we look at our own life and we think about how miserable we have it. That seems to be the case. Theodore Roosevelt lived 100 years before social media. He was president of the United States shortly after the turn of the 20th century. And you know what? He said it so well. He said, comparison is the thief of joy. That even 100 years ago, if you want to be miserable, compare yourself to other people. More recently, Stephen Furtick is a pastor of Elevation Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he put it this way. He said, the reason we struggle with insecurity, not feeling good about ourselves, is because we compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. Because that's what you're seeing on social media, right? You're seeing the best of everybody else and their well-behaved children and their nicely manicured house and their beautiful lawn and their beautiful life and their fantastic vacation. And, they're holding the camera at just the right angle so they look a little bit thinner than they really are. And everybody's so awesome. And then you look at your miserable little family and your miserable little life and you convince yourself that it's terrible. And that's why you get miserable on social media. And that's what makes it worse, right? Because you're looking at other people's marriage going, and that's why we kicked off the series talking about our marriage and the real struggles. And if you missed it, you can catch up online or on our audio podcast and listen to that week. We want to have a real conversation. But do you know what's at the heart of your comparison? You know what's at the heart of like that feeling you get every time you're scrolling through and you're like, oh, why are they and how come I'm not and why is it this way? And when you're feeling miserable, you know what's at the heart of that? Jealousy. It's jealousy. And jealousy is something we do not like to admit to. It's easier to say, oh, my brother, he's jealous kind, or my mom's jealous, or my sister's jealous, or my best friend, they're very jealous. But to look in the mirror and go, no. I'm jealous? That's a very different thing. And that's fueling some of the discontent in your relationship. Why is her partner better than my partner? Why is his girlfriend, better than my girlfriend? Why is their job better than my job? Why is their team better than my team? Why is their life better than my life? You know what that is? That's jealousy. And it's this discontent that you have with how you feel. Now, again, is that a social media problem? Is that a welcome to, the 21st century problem? No, it's a human problem. It's a problem that's been around for literally thousands of years. And we're going to look at a couple of ancient texts. We're going to go back 2,000 years, but for this first text, we're going to go back over 3,500 years, 3,500 years ago. And we're going to go to a moment in the life of the nation of Israel where there was a leader named Moses. Some of you know that name, others it's brand new. But Moses' job was to lead a people who were just over about 500,000 people, the Jews, the Israelites. And he went up on a mountain where he met with God. And God gave him a series of instructions on how to live life as a community. So Israel didn't used to be a people. They were delivered from slavery. All of a sudden, they were going to be a nation. And he's like, you need some guidelines on how to actually live as a people when you live in community. So there's actually 613 guidelines, rules, regulations that God gave Moses to give the community. But the first 10 are the ones that we pay the most attention to. And the 10th of the 10 commandments goes like this. It starts like this. He said, so this is right about jealousy. So one of the 10 commandments deals with jealousy. It's ancient language, but we'll explain it. You must not covet your neighbor's house. Chances are you don't use that word anymore. What does that mean? It means you must not desire. You must not want. You must not long for. You must not be jealous of your neighbor's house. And so let's just start there. You're scrolling through your social feed and you're jealous because they just finished their renovations and their house looks so amazing. And God's like, don't, okay? Think about that. Like we have a whole, this is what our economy is based on. We have a whole TV network devoted to coveting your neighbor's house. Like you got to go home, you got to delete HGTV when you go home, okay? Because it's bad. We have a whole social media network. Pinterest is actually designed to help you covet your neighbor's house. And so you think about where that's gone in our connected age, and you were happy with your kitchen until you saw somebody else's kitchen. You were happy with your garage until you realized your neighbor could actually park cars in their garage. And you're like, oh, now I don't like that anymore. And so you get into this place where you're just perpetually discontent, and what you have is not enough. Now, again, this is a human problem, so think about this. This text is 3,500 years old. What were their houses like? They're made of mud, all right? And so you look at their mud house and you're like, well, they have a better mud house than I do, right? So you go, at least their roof doesn't leak, but you, honey, you're useless, like our roof leaks. And, maybe they're living in thatched roofs. I don't know where they're living. They're living in caves. It's like, well, our cave isn't as nice as the neighbor's cave. Like this goes back 3,000 years. And what are they doing? They're coveting other people's mud. That's what they're doing. They're covering other people's bricks. They're covering other people's stones. They're coveting other people's caves. And that's a human problem. And what we've done is we've just moved inside and we have, central air and central heating and we have all this stuff that we value. But coveting is a human issue. And so when they're forming the nation of Israel, Moses gets everyone together and says, look, I'm going to tell you. And why do you have a do not, right? You have do nots in your house, like to your kids, do not go to bed without brushing your teeth. Why? Because your kids are going to go to bed without brushing their teeth. That's why you have a do not. All right, so Moses is like, you are going to covet your neighbor's house. I'm just telling you, because you're human, so don't. And then he goes on, because there's a list. He says, you must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife. And again, you're scrolling through your social feed, and you're like, well, I bet you they never argue about this. How come she's so good looking? And how come, what happened after the marriage or whatever? Or maybe you're coveting your neighbor's husband. I remember when Tony and I got married, we were in student housing, we were students, and we moved into our apartment together. And she says, so you're going to help me set some stuff up, like build some furniture and hang some pictures? And I'm kind of like, we didn't talk about this. Like, and she's like, well, like, just grab a screwdriver and a hammer and that kind of stuff. And I had to tell her, like, I'm in ministry. I have no actual skills, okay? Like, I grew up in a house where we didn't do that. Like, I didn't know how to assemble stuff or do a screwdriver or a hammer. And she's like, how did I end up with him, right? And this is like moments after the marriage. So, you're coveting. It's like, well, and she grew up in a house where her dad did everything, like didn't hire anyone out for that. And I'm like, well, we'll have to hire people. And she's like, you're in ministry. You don't make that much money. So now I have tools, I just don't know how to use them. So that's sort of my life at this point. But you must not cover your neighbor's husband, cover your neighbor's wife, covet your neighbor's wife. And then it goes on. Moses says, or their male or female servant. We don't really have servants, but like some of you, you're in charge of a shift at your work, and you're like, well, how come the other shift is better workers? Or maybe the other company, your competitor, has a better team than your team. And you're like, where do they get all the good leaders? Where do they get all the good employees? Where do they get all the good stuff? Like, I don't like that. How about this one? Covet your neighbor's ox or donkey. You're like, check, never coveted that, right? You're like, no, I haven't coveted a single donkey in my entire life. So you think you're safe. No, it's not ox or donkey. You know what it is for a lot of us? It's cars. It's like, you want to look at guys? It's like, covet your neighbor's car. And it can get so easy to get funky about it. Like I'm a car guy, but again, I'm in ministry. So, I drive a 6-year-old SUV, and I should be grateful. But the other day I get in my car and I discover I can't get the windshield wiper fluid to come out. And I'm like, oh, I must be shy of windshield wiper fluid. So I go in the back, I pour some in, and all of a sudden there's still no fluid. I'm like, well, I'm out of tricks now. Like, I don't know what else to do. I filled it up. It's broken. And so I'm trying to figure out, it's not coming out of the back one. It's not coming out of the front. It must be that like pump or chamber thing, right? But I can't fix that. Like, I got to go bring that in. And then I look at other people's car and it's like, oh, you got a heated steering wheel. That must be nice. I can't even clean my windshield. So you end up in that awkward place where you're just always discontent with what you have. And then he says, by the way, this is not an exhaustive list. So you must not covet your neighbor's wife, male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. Not their backyard, not their fire pit, like not their vacation. Because you're like, oh, they're always going on vacation, and they took this cruise, and we want to go on a cruise, but we went camping instead. And like, ugh. You just end up in this place. It's social misery. And what's under that? Like, we've lived in that space for millennia as human beings. And I think what social media has revealed and what social media has amplified is that underneath that, it's this fear. This is actually in our dictionary these days. There's this fear of missing out. There's this fear of missing out. I'm afraid I'm going to miss out. Like, what if I never get the right job? What if I never find the right person? How come they have all these experiences, and why is their life going so much better? And they seem to be making money, and she's so attractive. And this jealousy is so deep. A lot of us have eliminated categories of people. Some of you, if you wanted to be really honest, you don't like skinny people. It's just like, I don't like skinny people. Why? Because they're skinny and I'm not. Or you don't like muscular people, or you don't like athletes, or you don't like rich people, or you don't like successful people, or you don't like people who drive, certain cars. And you know what the definition of success is in most of our minds? It floats. It's anybody who is more successful than you are. That's it. So if you're down here, everybody who's more successful than you are, you don't like. If you're up here, there's still more successful people, but you don't like them. And it's this fear that somehow you don't have enough. And it's a fear that you're going to miss out. You talk to a lot of people, some of you are in your 20s, and whenever I sit down and I talk to people in their 20s, there seems to be this collective gripping that's just like, I don't know what to do with my life. And it's because you have so many choices. What if I miss out on this? What if I miss out on that? You should have been born 50 years ago. There were no choices. It's just like, well, I can do this, so I do it. And now we have all this choice, and we've got this FOMO, this fear of missing out. Well, there's that. I heard a phrase this summer that really caught my ear, and I just laughed as soon as somebody said it out loud. A number of people are saying this, but it was new to me. There's the fear of missing out, but you ever thought about the joy of missing out? The joy of missing out? That maybe there's a joy in missing out. Going, you know what? So I didn't get an invite to the party. So what? So my garage only has space for one car. So what? So we didn't get the reno done. So what? So we didn't have the expensive vacation. So what? Maybe there's a joy there. Maybe there's a contentment there. But constantly scrolling and not dealing with the underlying issue of jealousy will never get you to a place where you could say, there's a joy in saying no. There's a joy in missing out. Because you know what jealousy is at its heart? And I got this definition from Andy Stanley, and I love it. He wrote a great book a number of years ago called Enemies of the Heart, where he talks about jealousy and guilt and anger and some other things. It's so good. You should add it to your library. But Andy defines it this way. He says, jealousy says, God hasn't given me enough. If you want to know what's really under your jealousy, it's not a human problem. It's a spiritual problem. And what you're saying to yourself, really, if you're honest, is God hasn't given me enough. And if you wouldn't consider yourself a Christian and you're here in the room, thank you for being here today, or you're watching online, you might say the universe never gave me enough. Or God, however you might, if there really is a God, if there is a God, I got shortchanged. Because I look at my sister, she's so beautiful, she's so talented. I look at this other speaker, he's so gifted, he's so funny. I look at other people who start businesses and theirs just take off, and like I'm not. I never got to the top of my class in med school or in nursing. Like, how come? God, you didn't give me enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. My social skills aren't at the level that other people's social skills are. God, you didn't give me enough. And if you really got honest with yourself, that's what's underneath your jealousy. It's like, I got shortchanged. And again, that's not a 21st century issue. That's a human nature issue. And fortunately for us, Jesus taught about it. I'm going to take us into a story that Jesus told 2,000 years ago. I love this story. I think I teach on it every single year. I always come back to it because it's a story that's really, really informed how I try to live my life and has really helped me wrestle down the issue of jealousy in my own life, because we're all jealous of someone. And maybe a nicer house isn't your thing. You could care less about your house. But, insert your jealousy thing here. Maybe it's experiences. Maybe you want to travel the world and your friends are traveling the world, but you don't have the money. Maybe it's education. Maybe it's like you want to start your own thing, but you're in this dead-end job, or you just don't have the skills to fill in the blank. You know what that is? You're really saying, God hasn't given me enough. And Jesus said, you think that? Let me tell you a story. And so he tells this story in Matthew chapter 25, and he says, okay, this is what life is like. This is what God is like. Again, the kingdom of heaven. So what is the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God, two phrases that Jesus used interchangeably. That refers to the future life, but also the present life. That you're actually right now in the kingdom of heaven. Did you know that? That God is actually at work. He's not dead. He's actually at work in the world. And he said, so you want to know what this life is about, the kingdom of heaven? It can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. Now, in this story, the man kind of stands for God. And notice, he's gone on a long trip. So some of you, your question is, hey, if there really is a God, Carrie, like, come on, 2,000 years, like, come on, how come we haven't heard from him? And Jesus said, let me tell you a story about that. And he told a lot of stories about a landowner or God who went on a long trip. It's going to be a long trip. You're going to think the landowner is dead. You're going to think the owner is dead. He's not dead. He's around. He's very active, and he's coming back. And we believe that about Jesus. We believe that about God, that God isn't dead. He's very much alive and active. It's just a long trip. So what did this guy do? He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. So this is an interesting parable. If we went back to the Greek, which the New Testament is written in, the word that shows up again and again, where we're going to see like bags of silver, different things translated in different ways, different translations translate it differently. But the original word is talent, which is a word that you knew. Now, talent 2,000 years ago was a unit of currency. It's like saying dollars or gold or silver or Bitcoin or something like that, So he gave this guy 1 Bitcoin, or he gave him, $1,000 or something like that. But this story has been told so many times over the centuries that the word talent has come to stand for gift or ability, because this is a way that the story gets interpreted a lot. And so that's what's at stake. So he entrusted his money to them while he was gone. And look at what he did. These are how the talents are handed out. He gave 5 bags of silver, or in the original language, 5 talents to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. So what's going on here? So 5, 2, and 1. How much was a talent? A talent was actually equal to about 20 years' wages. So let's say, just to pick an even figure and make the math easy for someone like me, let's say the wage was $50,000 a year. All right, good wage, but not like extraordinary. $50,000 a year, 20 years, that's $1 million. So he gave, get this, $5 million to one person, $2 million to another, and $1 million to the last. See, so if you know the background to the story, you already feel bad for the guy who got 1 bag of silver. You're like, what, you gave him $20? No, he gave him $1 million. And a lot of us in the story, when we look at the story, we think of ourselves and we say, well, I didn't get the 5 and I didn't get the 2. I got the 1. I'm not as good looking. I'm not as smart. I'm not as skilled. I'm not as rich. I'm not as gifted. I'm not as fill in your blank as my neighbor, as my friends, as my sister, as my parents, as my kids. I'm not that. But listen, even if you're the person with 1, that's $1 million. Like if you struggle thinking you're not enough, you have everything God needs for you to accomplish in this life inside you. And it's a weird tension we live in because you know what? Here's the reality. A lot of us say, well, I'm not enough, And the truth is, you're not enough. There's this paradox. Like, if you really look at your life, you're a wreck. And I know that's not very popular to talk about in our culture, but in light of the gospel, like, no, things are really bad. We've talked about this before. Tim Elmore says when it comes to how we're raising the next generation, we're raising a generation of kids with high arrogance and low self-esteem. High arrogance because the culture says, you're amazing, you're fantastic, everything's beautiful, everything's wonderful. You do you. But deep down, no, I'm the problem. And the gospel says, yeah, you're the problem. You're kind of a train wreck, Carrie. And you look, what is the common denominator in your life? You. And so every mistake, every failed relationship, every time you mess up, you look in the mirror, you're kind of left with you. And you're like, well, don't say that. That makes me feel terrible about myself. Yeah, but the power of the gospel is that's exactly who you are, and you are incredibly loved by God, and He wants to build into your life in a powerful way. And Elmore says about kids, it's high arrogance, low self-esteem, because you're saying, oh, it's amazing, you can do everything, and you're perfect, and you're wonderful, and you're fantastic. And the kid deep down as they grow up goes, I know that's not true. I know that's not true, but we don't have language around that. And so a lot of us get into the point, we're looking at, I got the 1 talent, I got the 1 bag of silver, and we're so upset and we're so frustrated. And we say, God, you didn't give me enough. Now, Jesus deals with that in this story, and it's powerful the way He handles it. And He says, so what happens? Then he left on his trip. So the landowner's gone. And the servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. So he began to invest it, and that's what you would do, right? So if you think about your gifting and your talent and your ability, even though this parable can also be used about money, and that's a very valid teaching of it. So what's your gift? You have the gift of hospitality. You stay-at-home mom and you've got some kids you're looking after, or you're in the workforce as a mom. Maybe you're jealous of the stay-at-home moms, or the stay-at-home moms are jealous of the moms who are out in the workplace, whatever that is. It's like, hey, whatever you've been gifted with, whether that's a talent for work or whether you're staying at home or whatever you're doing, whether you're starting a business or working in a business, for me, people told me when I was a kid that I had a gift of communication. But there's a gift and then there's a skill. And a gift is, yeah, I'm just naturally good at it and I make it up as I go along. A skill is, I went to school for it and I learned how to be a better communicator. And I've spent decades studying other communicators and studying the art of communication so I can get better at communication. That's putting your talent to work. If you have the gift of hospitality, great. Some of you have a gift in a kitchen where my wife has this. I don't have this gift where you can just look at 5 ingredients, put it together, it tastes amazing. Well, that's one thing, that's a gift. But to become a chef, that'll never make you a world-class chef. To become a world-class chef, you have to develop that. And that's what this guy did. So he took the 5 bags of silver, he invested the money, earned 5 more. I took my talent, I took my gift, I added skill to it, now there's more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. So he went to work. But the servant who received 1 bag of silver, look at this, dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. Now, why would he do that? Probably because he said, you only gave me 1. You didn't give me enough. I'm not happy with what you gave me. And we can live our lives that way if we're not careful. And then look what happens. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. It's not our money. It's not our talent. It's not our gift. It comes from God. The servant to whom he entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more. I took what you gave me, I put it to work. Now, look at what the master said. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Pay attention, because you'll see this phrase again. You'll also see this next phrase again. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so I will now give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Now, if you really read for what this text says, what do you mean small amount? This guy got the most. This guy got 5. And God's saying, look, I'm God. And you think this life is just about this life? No, you're moving into another life. And I'm going to give you more responsibilities. Like, you exercise them really well. And by the way, this does not get you into heaven. A lot of people have this misconception where, like, the way we get into heaven is that we just work really hard and hopefully we do a lot of good in our lives. That is not true. The way you get into heaven, the way you become a Christian, is Jesus died on a cross 2,000 years ago for your sin. You embrace him and you trust him as your Lord and Savior. And what that means is in eternity, there's going to actually be more responsibility and more work. That makes a lot of people want to be atheists, right? It's like, I don't want more work. I want to retire. We think that heaven is about a big retirement party. Not at all. God is going to give us some responsibility. And let's celebrate together. Then the servant who had received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more. So when you look at that mathematically, he's producing 40% of what the first guy got. Now, what do you think God says? Yeah, the math isn't very good. You didn't do very good with what I gave you. Like, come on. This guy produced 10 million. You produced 4 million. That's what you show me? Not at all. The master said just the opposite. The master said, well done, my good and faithful servant. Same language. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. See, so when you're sitting there going, I don't have as much. Like, why am I not fill in the blank? God says, you missed the point. You missed the point. I gave you exactly what you needed. And I gave you my son. And yeah, other people carry maybe better speakers, or they may be funnier, they may be this, or they may be that, but all I'm asking you to do is put to use what I gave you. Other people may be more successful. Other people may be faster, smarter, stronger, whatever. All I'm asking you to do is put what I gave you to work. Stop comparing yourself. I'm thrilled with what you've done under my help. So that also means we know what would have happened to the 1 talent wonder if he showed up with 1 more. But he didn't. Then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man. You're not good. harvesting crops you didn't plant, gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. I just fixated on how much you gave the other people. I didn't do anything with what you gave me. Look, here's your money back. But look at the master, he says. And we know what the master would have said if he put it to work and produced 2 million. Or if it was $1 and he produced $2. If he added skill and ability and heart to what he had given and just leveraged what God had given him. But he didn't. And so the master replies, you wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops and plants and gathered crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Then he ordered, take the money from this servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. So where does this leave us? As you're scrolling through your feed, as you're thinking about other people's families, other people's dating life, other people's relationships, other people's... You know where this leaves us? And this is a life lesson. It'll help us deal with so much more. Celebrate what God has given others. Celebrate. And leverage what God has given you. Celebrate what God has given others. Say, you know what? I'm glad you got the promotion. I'm thrilled you got the new car. That has like wiper fluid stuff that works, in those chambers. That's good. I don't even know what to call that thing. But anyway, we'll get it fixed this week. So, thank goodness you can use windshield wiper stuff. That's good. Celebrate what God has given others. Leverage what God has given you. What has he given you? Because he's given you something. So what does that mean this week? It means a few things. You can try this. How about this? Scroll less. Just scroll less. Some of you might say the right application is, I'm just going to ditch my phone. This isn't going away anytime soon. Do you know even the Amish have cell phones now? That's a true thing, like Google it. The Amish have cell phones. So this is not going to disappear. You've got to learn how to live in this age, but maybe scrolling a little less would be a good step. And then how about this? Be truthful. Be honest in your status updates. I mean, don't like live from the kitchen, huge fight, join my Insta story. Don't do that. All right, don't do that. But just be truthful. Don't always, because we've all done this, right? You post something, and in the back of your mind, there's a part of you that, I wonder if any other people are going to envy me for this. Ugh, that's so ugly. And that's not from God. So just be truthful. Be honest. Don't just post your highlight reel. Post some real moments. Tell the truth. Don't boast. And then how about this one? This is the hardest. Celebrate more. Celebrate more. That means you're not just looking to see how many people like your picture. That means you're going on to like other people, including the people you're jealous of, especially the people you're jealous of. And it means leaving a comment like, way to go. And you're like, no, you don't understand. I feel like deleting them. And that's what some of you've deleted people because you're jealous of them. You block people. Not because they're trolls, but because you can't stand them. Why don't you? Because you're jealous. That's this human thing that only God can really fix. And what I would encourage you to do is to go back and actually celebrate that they got the promotion. Celebrate that they took the cruise. Celebrate that their kids graduated at the top of the class. And then shut up about your kids. Shut up about your life. And don't be like, hey, just like my kids. No, just shut up. And just celebrate. And you're like, oh, I don't even want to do that. That's not natural. That doesn't feel good. Of course it doesn't feel good. Because what you're battling is your sin nature. What you're battling is the evil stuff. And even if you're like, congratulations, press, just do it. Just do it, all right? And you're like, well, that isn't authentic. I don't care. Authentic's miserable, okay? Authentic is, I'm sad all the time and I'm jealous and I'm bitter. So what you should do is just like, congratulations. When you see them in person, I'm so happy you're engaged. I'm so happy you're pregnant. I'm so happy you're getting married. I'm so happy you got the promotion. I'm so happy you got the raise. And if you've got a fake smile, fake smile. But give thanks. And you know what that will do? That will beat down the beast of envy and jealousy inside you. As somebody who's been doing this for years, because it's inside me too, I promise, we talked about this last week, eventually your emotions will catch up with your obedience. It'll take a while. So if you got to do it through your teeth this week, do it. Celebrate someone who has more or who's done more than you have. Congratulate them. Shake their hand. Give them a hug. Tell them, man, I'm glad you got my dream car and I don't. Don't add the I don't part, all right? I'm glad you got that. And just you thank them and you thank God for them and you push them into the spotlight and you celebrate them, and that will beat down the misery that you have inside you. And then what do? You go leverage what God has given you. You go put some snow on your windshield, to melt it and do the windshield wiper thing until you get it fixed. That's what you do. Because you got to celebrate what God has given others and leverage what God has given you. Celebrate, and that is your homework this week. Go and celebrate what God has given others. And then go leverage what God has given you. Let's pray. Oh, Father, there is so much that we wrestle with in this life. And we just confess that often we get miserable because we just don't let you wrestle down jealousy inside of us. We're jealous. We're jealous of family members. We're jealous of coworkers. We're jealous of all of that. And Father, that's a spiritual issue. So wrestle it down and give us the strength to celebrate. You say elsewhere in the Bible, rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Help us to get there. And Father, for anybody who hasn't committed their life to you, and if you want to do that right now, just pray with me. Lord Jesus, today I embrace you as my Lord and Savior. Today I realize I just have come to the end of myself, and it's miserable. And I need a God who can rescue this, to rescue me. So will you rescue me? And I put my faith and my trust and my confidence in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. If you did that today, just know we're celebrating with you. And Father, will you just help us all this week? Celebrate what you've given others. Leverage what you've given us. In Jesus' name, amen.